All right, welcome to this third, I believe, yes, third Somatics and Support call. And we're going to start with the somatics, and then we'll go into some Q&A. This somatic practice is a breath sensing practice. So wherever you are right now, just go ahead and find a comfortable place where you can either close your eyes or just soften your gaze and really tune inward to the sensations of your body. Begin by simply noticing, where do you feel the breath most easily in this moment? Where does the breath feel the most pleasant or simply neutral? And you don't need to do anything to change the rhythm of the breath. You're simply observing it. You might find as you rest your awareness on the breath that it tends to deepen or lengthen on its own. And if that doesn't happen, that's also completely fine. Now we're going to move our awareness to some different places where you might be able to feel sensations of breath. Let's start with the nose. Noticing the sensation in your nostrils. Feeling the movement of air as you breathe in and as you breathe out. And noting the difference between those two sensations, the inhale and the exhale. Notice if you can feel any sensation from the breath on the top of your lip, the very outer edges of your nostril. And notice how far back up into your head you feel that gentle movement. And now bringing our awareness down into the throat. Just notice if you're able to sense any movement of air as you inhale and exhale in the throat or in the neck. And if not, that's okay. We're just noticing. Bringing your attention to your upper chest, your collarbones, your sternum, those ribs. What do you feel here as you inhale? And what do you feel as you exhale? Letting the awareness drop down into the lower ribs. Noting the middle back, those bottom two ribs. What do you feel here on each breath? Noting also the sides of the body and the lower ribs and the solar plexus. And bringing your awareness down now into the lower belly and even into the pelvis, just that lower abdomen. What do you notice with each breath here? If you find that there's very little movement, you might just invite some of the muscles in the belly to relax. And then noticing your sits bones if you're sitting, or your feet if you're standing. Can you feel any subtle sensations or changes when you inhale and when you exhale? Is there a slight shift of weight? Is there a change in pressure or connection? Now feeling into the back of the body, especially if you happen to be laying down or leaning back against something. What do you feel in the back of the body as you breathe in and out? Bringing your focus now to your skin. Can you feel the slight shifting of your clothing over your skin with each breath? Perhaps on your arms, or perhaps on your chest or belly. And then letting the awareness permeate the entire body, feeling the whole body breathing. noticing that you can just sit back and observe. There's nothing for you to do. The body is breathing you. With each inhale, feeling the whole body filled and energized by this breath. With each exhale, the body relaxes and releases with this breath. We'll spend a couple more moments here, feeling the full body breath in your own rhythm. One more time, breathing in life and energy into the whole body. And as you exhale, relaxing and softly opening the eyes. I hope you enjoyed that somatic breath sensing practice. And next we'll move into our questions. So I'm here to support you and whatever questions are coming up for you in your recovery journey, in your nervous system healing, and whatever's going on for you. And as I mentioned before, if you're live on the call, if you want to drop your questions in the chat, just write anonymous if you'd like it to be anonymous, or you can also raise your hand, just knowing that being on speaker view, if you speak, your screen will be recorded. So while I give a moment for you to compose any questions that you want to ask, I want to just speak to something that came up recently, which was this question of if I'm so overwhelmed with all of the resources out there, and there's all of these programs, and maybe I've even bought a few of them, but I can't seem to find the energy to sit down and engage with them, what do I actually need to do? Right? Because we're blessed, right, that we have so many resources now for nervous system healing, for ME/CFS, long COVID, chronic illness. But there's so much out there that it can be hard to kind of cipher through the noise and figure out, okay, what do I actually need to do? And so my suggestion for that is to start with just a very simple somatic practice that you can do multiple times a day. And why I say somatic specifically is because the vagus nerve, which controls the autonomic nervous system, is sending messages from the brain to the body and from the body to the brain. But guess what? 80% of the communication on the vagus nerve is going body to brain, and 20% is going brain to body. So while it's important to do both, I think we can really leverage this natural function of the nervous system and of the vagus nerve if we're using body-based practices, right? Because then we're sending safety signals from the body to the brain. And that's what somatic practices do. They're just simply practices that are based in the body that signal safety. We did one just now on this call, a breath sensing practice. You don't have to spend 15 minutes on it, right? You could just do it for 3 breaths or 5 breaths, however long you want. And if you do that several times a day, then you're creating a consistent rhythm and habit of safety signaling to your nervous system. And then from there, of course, you can add more practices. I teach a lot, obviously, on my YouTube channel and also in my free Decode Your Nervous System class. There's a whole handout with a bunch of really quick practices that is a PDF that comes along with that. I'm also on Insight Timer, so I have some kind of guided practices on Insight Timer if you use that app. And just incorporating these into your day rather than like, oh, okay, once before I go to bed, but before I go to bed, when I wake up in the morning, whenever I think about it during the day, maybe I even set an alarm or a reminder to go ahead and do that several times. And just with that, I think you will start to notice a shift, not within days, but within weeks. And then you can start to have a little more capacity and a little more energy to think about, okay, maybe I want to add some of that top-down stuff. Maybe I want to learn a little bit about brain retraining or meditation. Or maybe I can actually engage with some of these more cognitive teaching tools that are available, or watch some YouTube videos or recovery stories. So that's just kind of a little tidbit for like people who are wondering, where the heck do I even start with this when there's just so much? So hopefully that's helpful. I've got a question here in the chat. Wondering about how to navigate a dip or wobble, especially the emotional aspect, the waves of despair, hopelessness, catastrophic thoughts, and how to maintain neutrality towards symptoms and sensations. Yeah, that's a great question, Alicia. That comes up, I think, for all of us at various times. The first thing that I would share or remind you is that those emotions, those catastrophic thoughts, are symptoms. We think of them as reactions to the symptoms, and they are, but they are also in and of themselves symptoms of the nervous system being in a highly activated state. Because while our emotions affect our nervous system state also affects our emotions. That's that bi-directional communication that I was just talking about earlier. So sometimes it can be helpful to remember that, like, okay, maybe I'm feeling really depressed right now, but that's not necessarily just, because I'm sad or because things are really that bad. It's because my nervous system is in a highly activated state, and that's what goes with it. Is, it's this whole package. It's a physical response, it's an emotional response, it's a mental response. It's all of the above. So maybe just like having a little reminder to yourself. In fact, that is one of the things that I really recommend to have is people call them like a crash kit or a wobble kit for when you're having like a harder day or a harder week or more, that you create this ideally when you're feeling a bit better, so that you have it on hand and it's ready for you. And one of the things you want to put in there is some positive messages to yourself from yourself. And that could be wins, like a list of wins that you've had. It could be just, a positive message about when you're feeling hopeful for recovery, like writing about that. And, I know it's possible because I saw this person do it, or because I had this experience. Kind of just some little like love notes from your past self can be really helpful. If you're already in the dip and it's hard to access that place, then you might still be able to think about, okay, what was some little piece of progress that I made at any point at all? And then just celebrating that, being like as grateful as you can feel for that little piece of progress, because often we kind of discount it. And then projecting that into the future simply by understanding that if I've made any progress in the past, it's possible for me to make progress in the future. And similarly, if I've gone from, this level of functioning to this level of functioning, there's nothing stopping me from getting to here, right? If you can make a little progress, you can make a lot of progress. There's no reason that there should be a ceiling on that. So those are just a few tips on kind of like getting back into that positive headspace. Another one would be visualization. If you can listen to a visualization or a story or a meditation or something that is like positive and pleasant, then you're able to access some of those positive emotions, even though it's not like where you naturally would want to go. You can do that with memories as well, just thinking about enjoyable memories and really imagining yourself in that scenario, or even just like your favorite ice cream or whatever you can think of that has some kind of positive connotation to it. You can also use distraction, like if you find yourself really wallowing, then whatever that you can access to distract yourself, maybe it's music, maybe it's naming colors in your head, it could be a lot of different things. If you're able to watch TV or listen to an audiobook or a podcast, that could be good. Recovery stories are really helpful because it kind of reminds you that it's possible and that there is hope. And then your second half of the question is about how to maintain neutrality towards symptoms and sensations. And I teach some different practices for this. You've touched on the hope key and the surrender key. So what I was just talking about was kind of the hope key in the 5 keys of healing in my program. And I have some other practices in there. So even just hoping for a little tiny bit of improvement, if that idea of recovery feels out of reach, or it triggers a lot of like even more hopelessness of like, I'll never get there, then just imagining like, I hope that tomorrow will be a little bit better, and trusting that that's possible. Like, what if tomorrow is a little bit better? That could happen, right? So leaning into those little small hopes if the bigger hopes feel out of reach. So then the neutrality towards the symptoms, that's more of the surrender key of the 5 keys of healing. And with that, it is this concept of secondary suffering, where often what creates the most suffering is not necessarily the symptoms or the sensations themselves, but all of the stories and emotions and thoughts that get triggered by them, that are wrapped around them, the meaning that we make of it. So with that, I really like to do either a body scan or just a mindfulness meditation, or something like breath sensing, like we just did, because it brings you into what is actually here, what is actually present in this moment. If I let go of all the stories and the past and future of it all, and just come back to the sensations. And yeah, the sensations might be really unpleasant, but if you can bring a sense of curiosity of like, okay, I'm having pain. Well, what kind of pain is it? What is the size of it? Are there any edges? Is there any place that I don't feel pain? what color might I give this? Or what's the texture of it? What's the temperature? So just getting curious and asking some questions like that. And then I also teach a kind of a pendulation process that can be really good for pain, where you find the opposite sensation. So whatever the sensation is that's pulling your focus and that's feeling really uncomfortable for whatever reason, ask those questions. Is it warm? Is it cool? Is it rough? Is it soft? And so on. And then where do I find the opposite? Maybe it's somewhere else in my body. Maybe I have this burning feeling in my shoulders, but my feet are cold. So then you can go back and forth with the somatic pendulation practice between those two sensations. And that is really powerful for creating safety in the nervous system and in the brain, because it shows that, okay, these unpleasant things exist, but they're not the only thing that exists. There are also other sensations. Every moment is a galaxy of sensation in the body. And maybe there's this planet over here that is pain, but then there's this whole other solar system that is this other thing that I'm experiencing. So it just kind of puts it more in perspective and in its right place. That's easier to do if you have someone guiding you. I do this often on my one-on-one calls, but it's definitely something you could do on your own, or just search for somatic pendulation on YouTube. Hopefully that helps, Alicia. Go ahead and pop in a follow-up question if you want. And then I have another question here. How about visualizing yourself being well, or visualizing finding the solutions to your illness? I sometimes do this. Yeah, visualizing yourself being well is great. You can do a past visualization or a future visualization. So you could think about a time in the past that you did something that was really enjoyable at a time maybe when you were healthy or just feeling better than you are right now, and really immerse yourself into that experience. And again, trusting if I had that experience in the past, there's no reason why I couldn't have it again in the future. And then you can also just imagine the things that you're excited about doing in the future. I just had a call with someone who's excited about doing a bike trip when they recover, and they bought the bike. They're like, this is gonna happen. So yeah, imagining yourself riding the bike and seeing all the scenery and the smells and the feel of your legs feeling so strong as they push the pedals. As much of that sensory information as you can is going to be really powerful. Yeah, so accessing positive emotions through visualization is a really, really great tool. And I also want to clarify that when I say visualizations, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're like seeing things in your mind like a movie screen. That is what some people experience, but for others, you might have more of an awareness of the sounds or the sensations, or you might just know that you're there, or you might have the emotions of the experience. So a lot of people will say like, oh, I can't visualize. That doesn't mean that you can't do this practice. It's called visualization, but really any and all of the senses are great. The point of it is to access those emotions. So if you're accessing the emotions, you're doing it right, basically. Yeah. Who else has a question? You can put it in the chat, or you can raise your hand, either way. Or we could do another somatic practice if people don't have questions. Okay, I see a question about feeling overwhelmed by all the info out there. I actually addressed this, I think, right before you got on, because that's such a common experience. yeah, all the apps, all the courses, all the info, everything. I mean, it's great that we have this much info now. That didn't used to be the case, but it can, yeah, it can just be overwhelming. And you might want to go back and listen to the recording where I spoke to this more in depth, but just to kind of recap, I suggested finding a somatic practice that you enjoy and doing it several times a day. Just that's it. And then from there, you can start to build up your routines. I think having a really solid morning routine and evening routine is fantastic. Maybe you add in a guided meditation as well as a somatic practice. Maybe you do a little stretching. Maybe you go outside in the morning, can be really nice. Yeah, VU and humming, great. There you go. There's a somatic practice. So doing that consistently is the key. You can't just do it once or twice and think it's gonna make a difference. You have to really show up for your nervous system with these practices again and again and again over a period of time. So that's why I say at least 5 times a day, but ideally like as many times as you possibly can. Like you could just spend all day humming. Not really, don't do that. But yeah, like at least 5 times a day, doing a few VU breaths, doing some humming, that's a great place to start. And then once you've established that, then maybe you add in a guided meditation before you go to bed, or you add in some brain retraining in the morning or visualization in the morning, if that's something that you enjoy. And again, you're consistent with that, because what we're trying to do is re-engage a safety system after we've been practicing the threat system and the survival system for a very, very, very long time. So it's going to take a lot of practice and repeated practice, consistent practice to access that safety system in a consistent way. Used to do hours of meditation daily and it didn't help that much. Yeah, I mentioned this earlier as well, that the vagus nerve, which is the key component of the nervous system, is sending messages between the body and the brain, but 80% are going from the brain to the body and only 80% are going from the body to the brain and only 20% are going from the brain to the body. That's one of the reasons why top-down approaches like meditation and brain retraining don't work as well for a lot of people. There are other reasons as well, which I could go into if anyone's curious, but meditation is great. Meditation is really powerful. For some people, like that's the thing. Like that's what really, really helps their nervous system find safety. That wasn't the case for me, and it's not the case for a lot of other folks. So if you enjoy meditation, if you find it helpful, then by all means, please go ahead and do that. But if you're not finding it helpful, just know that body-based tools, somatic tools might work better for you. And there's a lot of different ones. So even if you tried a couple and you felt like, this isn't really working for me, try some different tools. Also do them for longer, because they don't work as fast, I would say, as for a lot of people, they don't work as fast as the difference that you feel after a meditation, if that really does it for you, or a brain retraining round. But if you use them consistently, you'll notice the shifts happening in your body and in your mind and your emotions more and more and more and more and more quickly. Like, for example, eye stretches. A lot of people do eye stretches for the first time and nothing happens. They'll hold this for a minute, nothing really happens. If I just think about doing it, I start yawning, and like my nervous system is like releasing stress literally just from thinking about it. And that's because I've been doing it for so long and I practice it consistently. Tapping. Yeah, tapping is another really great body-based tool that works amazing for a lot of people. So definitely a good resource. Okay, I got another question here. How to speak about a wobble to others. I've needed to ask others for help this week and finding that I'm explaining what's going on and wonder if that's also not recommended from a brain retraining aspect. Like, does it perpetuate the wobble by over-identifying with it? Oh, I kind of hate that messaging that you're not supposed to identify with your illness. I think it's, I don't know, it just feels a little toxic to me. Like if you're sick, you're sick. Like that's a thing that's happening. It doesn't have to be like a bad thing or a big deal, but if that's your reality, that's your reality. If you have a limitation, if you need an accommodation, that's your reality right now. It's not always going to be that way. It probably always wasn't that way, but right in this moment, that's what's happening. Yeah. So how do we speak to this to others who aren't, having the same experience? First thing is just to know that they have no idea what the heck's going on with you. There's no way for them to know. If they haven't experienced it themselves, they cannot understand what you're dealing with. Like I remember telling people I have chronic fatigue and they'd be like, oh my gosh, me too. And I'm like, really? Are you like spending most of your time in bed and need to quit your job? Because if not, then that might not be you might just be tired. Like that could be what's happening. Because people often equate, they think, oh yeah, I'm tired or I'm burnt out. That's not the same thing. We all know that. So just giving them a lot of grace that they don't get it and they're not going to get it. And that's okay. They don't need to get it. But if they love you and support you, then they probably want to help you out. They probably want to show up for you in whatever way you need them to. So in terms of talking about the issue with others or asking for help from others, then all you really need to do is identify what would be supportive for me. How could I receive care? How could I feel supported? And then framing that just simply as a request, as a question. And you could preface that question by saying, hey, I'm in a bit of a chronic illness flare. Or I'm in a wobble, I'm in a dip. And if the people close to you like know that keyword, know what that means, then they'll understand that like, oh, okay, maybe Alicia was able to do this last week, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're able to do it today. So hopefully that's helpful. Just like, you don't need to explain it to anyone. You can just ask for what you need and they can say yes or no. I mean, that's important to recognize as well, that they might not say yes, and that's okay. Like they have free will. And then you can brainstorm and try to figure out another solution. But in terms of, if there's someone in your life who you feel like you really want them to understand the illness or your experience, or they are really wanting to understand it, I often point people towards spoon theory. There's a great article about spoon theory from the author, whose name I cannot remember right now, where she explains her experience, I think with lupus, using a metaphor of spoons. And I think it's just brilliant because it's very concrete and easy to understand. Like, oh, I just have fewer spoons today because I'm in a wobble. And then you don't have to like get into, I'm having this sensation and my head hurts and I feel like this and that and the other thing, because that is where we can get into trouble a little bit with nervous system brain retraining type stuff, is when we it's not over identifying with those sensations, because those are sensations that are happening. But that doesn't mean that we want to spend a bunch of time and energy thinking about them, validating them, explaining them to other people, like spreading them around our environment by telling them to everyone else. Like if you find it helpful to do that and you feel like more relaxed afterwards, feeling heard and more regulated because you've co-regulated with someone, then that's okay to do. Sometimes we need to vent. But if we're constantly like, my head hurts, my head hurts, my head hurts, my head hurts, over and over and over again, then that is reinforcing in some way that pattern. I don't know. I don't worry too much about that, honestly. But it is a trap that some people can fall into. And typically we fall into that trap when we are needing to prove that we're really sick and to validate our need for care and support by, this is really real. Maybe we felt like people didn't believe us in the past. Maybe we've been devalidated and told, it's all in your head, or you just need to do yoga, or, all of the bullshit that we get fed from doctors, from even sometimes from people close to us. So it's understandable to want to be validated in your very real experience of debilitating symptoms. But that mindset of I have to prove that I'm really sick, I have to prove that I really need help, I have to prove, I have to get validation from others that I really am seriously ill, or I'm really disabled, or I'm really all these things. That's the piece that's not helpful. And maybe that's what folks are talking about when they mean over-identifying with, because you don't need to prove anything to anybody. If you have a need, if you're having an experience, you're having that experience. So if you find that that's a pattern that you go into, doing some parts work and giving yourself that validation. Like, yeah, I feel it too. That's really happening. This is really real. It's really freaking hard. That can be helpful to do. So you don't feel like you need to constantly be validated by others and explaining what's happening to them. Yeah, we do often get into over-explaining. And it can be frustrating when people don't get it, especially people close to us, and say things that are insensitive or just wrong. Another thing you can do is you can send people to my Decode Your Nervous System masterclass, where I talk about how the nervous system impacts all these different functions of the body. Because I think that's where people get confused. They think it's like, oh, it's just in your head, or it's just psychosomatic. Like, no, that's not true. The nervous system includes the brain. We can impact our nervous system with our thoughts and our emotions. But that doesn't mean that it isn't creating very real physical sensations. And honestly, I may be a little bit biased, but I think that information is good for everyone to have, because there's so much dysregulation just in our society right now, whether or not it's manifested into like this type of chronic illness. It's still helpful to know a little bit about your nervous system and how to recognize when you're in one of these survival states, and some quick tools to regulate and release some stress. I'll go ahead and drop the link to that in the chat. All right, we have a little more time left. Do you have another question? See, there's a couple people on who haven't asked anything. Is there anything going on with you that you would want just some feedback, some support? If not, we can do another somatic practice. I'll just give another minute in case someone's typing. All right, well, let's do a little tapping since someone mentioned that. And I think it's a great tool. I don't necessarily do this in the traditional EFT way, where you kind of like talk through a bunch of things. Like I pretty much just use it for the somatic support that it provides. You can definitely do both. I'm not saying that my way is preferable necessarily. I just find it simpler and easier to do. So if you want to just follow along with me, I pretty much just tap on the face. This is more of the faster EFT or eutaptic style. And then I tap on the outsides of the eyes and under the eyes and on the collarbones. Sometimes I just tap on the collarbones, honestly, so it feels nice. And then I'll combine this often either with like some kind of brain tool, or I'll combine it with another somatic tool like orienting. So I'll be tapping, but I'll look around and I'll notice like all the circles I can find. There's a circle. And then I'll keep tapping and maybe I'll look for everything that's orange. You can also do like a raindrop tap, that can be nice too. Then maybe I'll close my eyes and just really focus on the sensations, especially with this like raindrop drumming sort of tap. Feeling those sensations on my face, on the sides of my eyes, under the eyes, on the collarbones. You can also take this just anywhere. So you could do kind of like a light raindrop tap all over the face. And just find wherever is the most pleasant for you. Where does this feel the best? I think it's like right at the top of my forehead right now, but it'll be different for you. It might be different in a minute. And just notice, why is this pleasant? Why does it feel nice? What about it feels nice? And similarly, we could do like a really light stroking over the face, just with soft fingers. Maybe you stroke over the head, or the ears, or the neck, whatever feels good. You're just finding the sensations that feel pleasant, or maybe just neutral, maybe just not unpleasant. That's fine too. And what we're doing with this is we're just reminding the body, reminding the nervous system that we're safe through sensation by finding sensations that are pleasant or neutral, and really bringing our focus to them. Another good one you can do pretty much anywhere is just sliding the hands one over the other, and doing this slowly enough that you can feel the ridges of your fingerprints. And maybe you watch your hands as you do this and just kind of track that gentle movement, or maybe you have your eyes closed. Both are great. Just got a deep sigh, which is a good sign that my nervous system is releasing stress. And then it's always really nice to pause and take a breath after doing a somatic practice, instead of just rushing into the next thing right away. Just let that register in your body. Let it actually sink in, this message of safety that we've just transmitted. And also noticing, how do I feel now? Do I feel different? Do I feel better? Maybe I feel worse. In what way have things shifted in my thoughts, in my emotions, in my body? I notice that I feel the weight of my body more, which for me is a really good sign that I'm regulated. But you might notice something very different. So just taking a breath and tuning in to whatever is present for you. And there's a little bonus somatic guided practice for you guys today. That's the end of our call. I'll be doing another one of these probably next week sometime. So however you got the info for this one, probably in your email. If you registered, you'll be registered for the next one. It's just one registration page with a new Zoom link each time. If you haven't registered, if you're watching this on YouTube, then I'll put that link below so you can join us live next time and ask whatever questions you want to ask. And I'll also be offering that free class. The free Decode Your Nervous System is available for you anytime. I'll put a link to that below the YouTube as well. And then I'll be doing a free webinar about the 5 keys, the 5 keys of healing, which I think I mentioned earlier, which have been really foundational for me, both myself and also for my clients. All right, thanks everyone, and I'll see you next time. Bye.